Hi, this is Roland Jean Charles from PMI JCM Realty Group, where we manage properties from an asset management perspective. Today, we're going to talk about something that's very important to the property management process, right? It's getting the tenant out of your property eviction, right? So they say the best way to keep a bad tenant out the property is to not let them in. And I believe that's absolutely true. But sometimes, it's unavoidable. Things happen and you have to evict the tenant from your property, right? And when that time comes and it arrives, you want to make sure that you do it in a way that is respectful to the tenant, that keeps you free of any violations of any landlord tenant rights, and you want to make sure that you do it in a way that gets you the property in your possession as quickly as possible so you can turn it around and get another tenant in the property. Because at the end of the day, property management is a business. Rentals are being a landlord and having a rental is a business. And the quicker you can get a tenant out, the quicker you can get a new tenant in, the better off you are. So I'm going to start off with a little story. There's one property that I started managing, and I inherited the tenant from that property, right? So the owner had the property for a couple of years, but they had this tenant for maybe 6 months, maybe less than that, right? And they said they needed help because the tenant kept complaining about different issues with the property. Before they had that tenant, they had another tenant in the property. The tenant before them didn't complain as much, didn't have as much issue, but this tenant just kept complaining, right? And so what happened in that situation is that that particular tenant, paid a large upfront fee for about 2 months or so, but then afterwards they didn't pay any rent. So basically, for about 4 months, right, the tenant was in the property, not paying the rent, and just giving the owner all types of heartburn, right? And that was mainly because, they didn't do proper screening. But, this article is about the eviction process. And so what I had to do, what I told the owner when I started, I said, hey, let's start the eviction process immediately. And, we went back and forth, and they wanted to give the tenant a second and third and fourth chance. And that delayed them being able to get the tenant out the property. They lost a ton of money, and they had a lot of work to do in the property. And so the advice that I want to give to everyone who's listening to this video is start the eviction process early. If you have to stop it because the tenant cures whatever issues that they cure, fine. But the fact of the matter is the eviction process is very important. You have to be diligent on it, and you have to make sure that you have the right paperwork, the right information. And the 3 tips that I'm going to talk to you that I'm going to talk to you about right now are going to help you work through this process so that you do a successful eviction with as little pain as possible, and and really get you back to property. Like I said, you can turn it over as quickly as possible, right? And so even if you do the credit checks, even if you call references, you still may find yourself in a place where you have to evict a tenant. And it's probably the most challenging part of ownership. Particularly if the tenant has kids, or, it's just a challenging time to put, no matter when it is, it's a challenging time to put a tenant out of a property. And it's really heartbreaking sometimes, but sometimes it's what you have to do as part of the business, right? But what we want to do is we want to make it as stress-free as possible for you. We want to give you 3 tips that's going to help you move the process along very quickly and put you in a position so you can be successful in the eviction process, right? So what are these 3 tips, right? So the first tip is that you want to make sure that you document every step of the process, right? So you want to make sure that every notice that you send to the tenant, you document. Every text message these days you send, you document. Even when you're doing things that's not in writing, every phone call that you make to the tenant, you document. And every call that they make to you, you want to make sure that you document. And as best as to your knowledge, you take down notes of what was discussed and what was agreed to, if anything were agreed to in those calls. Because without that documentation, it's going to be really hard for you as a property manager to make your case. And, they say possession is 9/10 of the law. And the more documentation you have about any violations that the tenant may have, um, had, or anything that they've done um, to go against the lease, is going to definitely help you move forward and be successful in your eviction process, right? So if you sent a pay rent or quit notice, or cure or quit notice, or an unconditional quit notice, all those documentations need to be recorded and kept in case you have to ultimately go to the point of taking the tenant to court and having the court rule in your favor for an eviction. So that's the first thing. Make sure that you document everything, and as long as you do that, you'll be in a great position to reclaim your property and get possession of that property. The next tip that I'm going to give you is for you to rely on guidance of an attorney. I have a great attorney that I use. I use them to create my leads and both to help evict tenants if that time comes, right? So all that documentation that you have, you're going to have to turn that documentation over to the attorney so that they can help process that eviction. Now, some property managers and owners like going to court and handling it themselves. And I will tell you right now, it's not worth it for you to go and try to do it on your own. It's better for you to pay the attorney the amount that it costs. Now, I have a deal with my attorney because I use their lease for our eviction process. It only costs me about $400. It's different for everyone, different for everywhere. Any different parts of the country is different. That's just the price that I have, and it's a good attorney, and I haven't had to use them other than to evict that one tenant that I had to evict. And that's a pretty good price. But the prices vary in terms of the cost. But what I will tell you is that it's worth every penny for you to have an attorney that's going to go to court. Make sure all the right paperwork is filled out. Make sure all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed to make sure that tenant gets out as quickly as possible. Timing is very important when you're doing these evictions. And so the sooner you can, put out those notices and set the eviction, the quicker you can get the property in your possession and everything turn around. So make sure you consider partner with a lawyer or a firm that specializes in tenant law, rental agreements, and tenant litigations, which is what I do. You'll be more than happy that you did, because it will keep you out of a lot of hot waters. So definitely take that advice and make sure you get guidance from an attorney. The next and the last tip that I would give you, particularly if you are a landlord self-managing your properties, hire a property manager, right? The landlord that hired me to manage their property when they were in hot water, they actually had another property manager before me, and that property manager was beyond their depths with the eviction process and with the tenant. And so bringing me on helped move that process along a lot smoother. And so as a landlord, you have to make sure that you have a discussion with your property manager so that you understand what their capabilities are when and if these issues would arise, and how they're going to be able to handle it. Because ultimately, it can be the difference with you having a property that you're not getting rent for 4 months, and you're paying out of pocket, as opposed to when they got me involved, I was able to get that tenant out within 30 days of them giving me the go ahead, right? So I had the process completed very quickly because I deal with this pretty often. I'm a part of NARPM, And, I know the process, and I had an attorney working with me that moved things along fairly quickly. So it helped get everything completed very smoothly and a lot quicker than if the landlord would have tried to do it themselves, right? Or even if I would have sat there and tried to do it myself, right? So those are the 3 steps, right? So this is a short video today, but it's very important. It's probably one of the most important parts of property management, right? The eviction process, right? And it may be your least favorite aspect of rental property ownership. But with these 3 pillars as in your strategy, the eviction task can be stress-free. And for more tips and suggestions regarding rental property investments, please contact us. We do have a Facebook page that I would like for you to join if you have any questions, and to get more learnings about how to streamline your business to maximize your growth. And we're also are going to be doing a free webinar, and you will see the link in the comment section below. Other than that, I'd like to thank you for joining this and have a great day.